Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome She Knows Media President and Chief Revenue Officer, Samantha Ski.
Hi. Okay, so this is something new that we're doing, and I hope you guys all have wine, because this is experimental and we're excited about trying this out. We get to drink wine and talk about vagina ecology. And I always personally wanted to have a best friend who was also a female gynecologist, but I utterly failed in finding that friend in my life to fill out my portfolio. But I did find a brilliant entrepreneur who could talk about everything from discharge to leakage to anal stimulation before breakfast. And that is our introduction to Naama Bloom, who is backstage hating me. And Naama is the founder of HelloFlo, which you guys may have seen for their amazing hymen-breaking, I'm just kidding, sorry, I just want to try that. Their groundbreaking branded content video that focuses on different women's health issues, things that are literally and figuratively sticky and hard to discuss. And she's done tens of millions of views, covering topics ranging from postpartum to getting your period for the first time to menopause, and made these topics really relatable and interesting and most amazing to us. And one of the reasons that She Knows acquired HelloFlo this spring is that Naama was able to do this work with Fortune 500 brands who normally don't talk about leakage and anal stimulation as openly as they might. I'm making up the anal stimulation just for fun. But anyway, so hence Wine and Gyne was born by Naama, and she's going to come out and tell you guys about it. We're really stoked to have this new program as a part of our portfolio, and if you guys enjoy it, then we'll keep doing it. So Naama, you want to come out?
Each set with a lot of wine up here,
which we will
just
finish.
in case. I'm going to put on my glasses. Thanks everyone for being part of the first ever Wine and Gyne. The idea was born in our office when a bunch of us were sitting in a room together thinking, wouldn't it be awesome to be able to sit and have a cocktail with your gynecologist? Because most of us go once a year, and after you leave, you realize you maybe didn't ask about something, or we're too embarrassed to. So I am here to ask the questions that you may have forgotten to ask, or you may be too embarrassed to ask. And with me is Dr. Jessica Shepard, who is an OBGYN practicing in Chicago. She's also a HelloFlo Learn From Her expert and a media expert on women's health. And also to her left is Sarah Brokaw, who's an author and psychotherapist based here, I believe, right? Yeah. So to start us all off, I'm going to put Jessica
on the spot.
On the spot. So when I first met Jessica, she and I were talking about anatomy and how important it is for women to understand their anatomy. And she has an awesome little parlor trick where she uses her whole body to help you remember your anatomy. So Jessica,
take it away.
Take it away.
So it requires everyone standing up and doing jumping jacks, not really. But the easiest way for me to explain about the anatomy, because that's one of the most important things when women come to the gynecologist's office, is when they have complaints, then I'm like, well, where, are you having these issues? And they'll be like, well, down there. And I'm like, but where down there? And they're like, down there. And I'm like, no, you tell me. And so it's this back and forth conversation of, sometimes I play with some of my patients. I'm like, no, where? And we'll go for 5 minutes when they realize that I'm joking. So the best way for me to kind of explain to them, I think pictorials are great when you look at pictures, but to actually think about how the anatomy is, I think of my arms as fallopian tubes. And if I were to be holding two maybe 2 like balloons, those would be my ovaries, okay? So when you think about your pelvis, your ovaries are actually not really attached to your uterus or very close to them, and they're separate organs, completely separate organs. So your fingers are like the end of your fallopian tubes that grab that egg every month, and it travels down your arms, kind of like this. Not really like this, but, and so my body would be my uterus. That's why I wore this peplum dress, so you can tell the shape of the uterus. And then my feet are the cervix. So when we do like pap smears, we're testing your feet as part of your pelvis, and that's what we do. So cervix is down there, uterus is here, fallopian tubes, they grab the eggs. I just didn't bring the balloons today, so, but that's about it. That's exactly how your pelvis is kind of spread apart. So when you go to the gynecologist next time, you're gonna be like, well, what's hurting is my fallopian tube on the right, and she'll look at you crazy, but that's okay. You know what your anatomy is, so.
Thank you for humoring me.
So now I get to drink wine. The game is every time you answer.
Every time we say vagina, take a sip. Okay, so we are gonna spend some time talking about sex because I think that's the topic that most of us think about but might be too embarrassed to talk about even when we're with our doctors. So I'm gonna start with the biggest sex organ we all have in our bodies, which I have heard is the brain. And Sarah, I would love for you to let us know what you think about that. Is the brain your biggest sex organ, and why?
Sure. What I want to say is that the reason why I became so interested in this subject matter is with sex, the VJJ, is that it's kind of the research is research. You know, and I have a VJJ obviously, and I was going into psychotherapy knowing that the subject matter of sex was going to come up a lot. And starting at around 31, I was still very unsure about what sex meant to me. And when I had female clients come and talk to me about their sex lives and why they were uncertain about whether they could have an orgasm or not have an orgasm, I kind of did my own research by engaging in sex with a guy, and I thought to myself, this is really interesting. I'm supposed to really enjoy this, but why am I not fully enjoying this? And I remember talking about it with another therapist, and she said 80% of women can actually have an orgasm. That's what I've been told. And I thought, well, I'm not one of the, I guess I'm the 20%. And I realized, as I did some more research, not just having sex with my boyfriend at the time, but I started to think about, is there a difference between a man and a woman when they're having sex? And yes, obviously, I think that women really do think so much in their brain, they don't think so much down there. What I have discovered, you just tell me if I'm wrong here, that when women engage in sex or when they had given birth, they have this hormone, the oxytocin, and then it immediately makes us want to bond with our partner. And I think that that can also lead into feeling more relaxed and wanting to have more sex and then having an orgasm. But unfortunately, the way that society has dictated how women should perceive sex is that you can't just go and have sex and enjoy yourself. There is a certain expectation that we're supposed to be perceived in a certain way, which is to kind of withhold. And I think now, even though we've made so much progress in how we view ourselves as women and as sexual objects in the bedroom, I still feel like we have so much more progress to be made.
Do you have anything to add on that?
Yes,
Jessica?
I figured out that the brain is bigger than most vaginas and penises, so yes, I think it is the biggest sex organ just by size alone. But I will say that a lot of my patients who come in with female sexual disorders or really haven't had really good contact with their partner, their significant other, is that they find that that connection is lost. And so many women, whether even if it's after surgery or after birth, or if there's any relationship stress, any one of those factors, people can find that they have difficulty with having sex or being connected with their partner. And one of the reasons is because the brain is definitely connected to your genitals, and if you have a disconnect somewhere, then you're not necessarily always going to have the best sexual experience. And so that's why I definitely advocate for sex therapists, therapists, because once you fix up here and really connect that, you'll find that some of your sexual experiences will be so much better.
So I want to explore this idea, Sarah, that you brought up about this pressure that we feel. And also, I think that there is a pressure to perform. So I'm not going to put you all on the spot, but I'm going to venture a guess that many people in this room have faked an orgasm before.
Let's do show of hands. I'm just joking.
I'm raising my hand. So let's talk about that. Like, why do women do that? Why do, in your experience, in your practice, in your research, why do you think there is that pressure?
To fake an orgasm?
Yeah.
I think if I were to go back to the caveman era, I really think that women feel the desire to procreate. I'm not going to say that all women have the desire to procreate, but I would say a significant number do. And I think that in order for a man, this is going back to the caveman era, that in order for a man to ejaculate, he's going to be that much more stimulated by a woman who shows pleasure, right? And then the man can ejaculate and they can conceive. And I think fast forward, I think that society is saying you need to please the man, obviously. But I also think unconsciously, there may be a need for a woman to show pleasure so the man can ejaculate and they can conceive. And this has a lot to do, this I think has a lot to do with what I've been hearing from a number of women when they choose to fake an orgasm. They say, well, I do just want to have sex so that I can have a child. And the other one is that I don't want to have him feel rejected by me. So, but at the same time, what's really interesting is that I think that these thoughts change over the years. I think if you were to talk to women who are already having sex versus a woman in her 40s having sex, I think it changes dramatically. And I would actually love to know, if anyone feels the courage to raise their hand, if your perception of sex has changed from your 20s to your 40s. Right. So I think it has a lot to do with, in your 20s, you're still very unsure about who you are as a woman, how you perform, what does your body look like. And then in your 40s, after extensive practice, hoping, that you come to a point where you're like, you know what, enough of this. I really want to get myself off.
Yeah.
What does that look like? How does it feel like? And I feel also, fortunately and unfortunately, I think that Sex and the City actually created a platform where women could be given the permission to talk about sex, to talk about vibrators, to talk about squirting, to talk about all of those things that were never really discussed before.
Yeah. So there's so much in there to unpack, but
Sorry.
let's talk, no, this is good. So one of the, I don't know, and we were talking about this before we came out, Jessica, but one of the, I don't know if it's a myth or not, but I have always heard that women hit their sexual peak in their 30s. So is that true? Is it a hormonal thing? Is it, what Sarah's referring to, which is that we just get more comfortable with our bodies? Like, what do you think that's about?
That has probably a lot to do with it. It's just the progression, the evolution of women. When we think about masturbation, if we wanted to start there, that's a good starting point, right? Everyone's like, yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah, go for it.
So masturbation, when we think about it, males typically do that very early on, as opposed to women who usually will wait some time or maybe not even do it at all. And usually that becomes with a stigma as well, as what society thinks we should or should not do, is so that males have a very early exposure to sexual experiences by themselves. And so they're sexually stimulated whether they're with someone or not, whether they're in a relationship or not, whereas women are the opposite, and so they actually start relationships before maybe they start having sex. So their progression into sexual confidence and feeling secure about themselves will be later, whereas men will have the sexual desires much earlier than women because of what their exposure is and what they will do in their bedrooms when they're 12 and 13. And so they actually progress further into relationships later because they have been doing this whole sex thing and earlier. So that whole reaction and that journey for them is different than we have had. But I think that it doesn't necessarily mean that every woman will get to some peak. And to say a peak, I think that's where the misconception is that it's a peak
There's
and then
no
it like goes
expiration
away.
date, right.
And so there's not really a peak. I think it's more of a comfort and a confidence that comes in their 30s, and usually that has to do with because they've been with someone or in some type of relationship that now they feel comfortable being exposed to more sexual encounters and how they feel in the bedroom or out of the bedroom, in the car. I mean, I don't know. So,
Right. All right, so let's talk about orgasms because we all want to have more of them, I'm sure. See?
someone back there.
Someone does.
does.
I can't imagine anyone saying, I wish I had less orgasms. So hopefully everyone, this isn't new to anyone, but obviously clitoris, very important in an orgasm, but I would love for you to talk a little bit about clitoris
I don't
stimulation.
have a body thing to go with the clitoris, sorry. It's not in my, I'm gonna work on that and then come back and do
right,
that
the
later.
vulva will be the next time. So can you talk about the clitoris, but also explain how it's connected to the G-spot and what the G-spot is? Because I think we've all been hearing about G-spots. Some people say they're a myth. I happen to know Jessica doesn't think they are a myth.
I think that even researchers still think that they're a myth.
Yes.
But the good thing about orgasms is that for women, we can have multiple orgasms.
I'll drink to that.
Yeah, you'll drink to that. Let's everyone please drink to that. But men have to have that relaxation before they can become erect again. So we're kind of, like one up on them there. That's helpful. But orgasms really are, again, very mental. So there's that connection that they need in order to really experience orgasms. And I think that there are a lot of women that actually don't know what an orgasm feels like or how to get to that point where they have an orgasm. And that, again, comes with, when you think about the actual sexual experience, men have a completely different sexual journey as far as the phases that they go through to reach orgasm than women do. And we take a longer time to get there because we are here for a long time and we'd like to enjoy ourselves. So there has to be more foreplay for women to get to that orgasm than men. So when we talk about the clitoris, it really is, when we think about this, and this can kind of go into the squirting thing. People are like, squirting, ah! But the clitoris actually
But we're going to go there, so buckle your seatbelts.
is at the top of the vagina. When you think about the vagina, it's at the top of the vagina. It's a very small, I encourage all my patients to go home and get a handheld, or you can do it in your hotel room and really no one will know, is that you need to look at your anatomy and be very comfortable with your anatomy, know where things are, so that we should all say, if you know where your clitoris is, you should be able to point to it. And so it's very small, but it has so many nerve endings that's why it's so pleasurable. But going into the G-spot, there still is a lot of discrepancy, even in research, that is there a G-spot, isn't there? And for the ones that say there is a G-spot, it's an erectile portion of tissue that is located on the upper part of the vagina. And when you think of the clitoris, you can think of it as somewhat of a tree. So the clitoris is actually the top of the tree, and the roots will be what we would expect to be the G-spot. So it kind of goes into the tissue of the vagina, and that's where the G-spot is. So again, so G-spot, some people think there are, some people think there aren't. But I think the main thing is that we shouldn't focus on if I have one or not and where is it and how do I, is again, being comfortable with the whole sexual experience rather than focusing on do I have a G-spot or not, is incorporating everything, the intimacy, the connection with your partner, and being comfortable to tell your partner what you like with sex.
But now that you told us we have them, can you show us a little come hither motion so everyone knows how to instruct someone to find it?
Yes, so when I think of the vagina, I think of this room, not you guys as a vagina, but this room as a vagina, because when I think anatomically of it, there's the roof, the floor, and the side walls. And the top, so the roof would be the difference between the vagina and the bladder. So the bladder is a floor above us, is what I like to say, and a floor below us is the rectum. And so when we think of the G-spot, it is on the roof about 1 to 3 centimeters, depending on your vaginal length, inside the vagina on the roof. So if you're going to, everyone in the room, so we need a mirror and we need your fingers in the room tonight. So you're gonna look, and then you're gonna feel, everyone's like, oh my gosh, this is crazy.
Everyone's gonna come back tomorrow very refreshed.
And if you were to insert
ready to
your
learn.
fingers, you would, so when we say come hither, we come hither, and either in between 1 and 3 centimeters on the roof of your vagina, you should feel, and you really want to feel for actually a difference in tissue, how it feels. So you should be very comfortable with your vagina. If you feel a somewhat like firmer piece of tissue 1 to 3 centimeters in when you're coming hither, then you should be able to sense if there is a G-spot area. And then through stimulation, obviously, you'll be able to now tell your partner where you would like them to focus on.
The question is the G-spot the same thing as they call it the Skenes glands?
The Skenes gland. So the Skenes gland, when anatomically, when we all start out and we look like little seahorse in our mommy's wombs, we are basically male and female until we become gender specific on male and female. So a lot of the things that we have anatomically are similar to what males have. And so when you think of the prostate gland, which secretes a lot of secretions, that's a good word.
It secretes stuff.
Secretes
medical term stuff.
The Skenes gland is somewhat very similar to what the prostate releases as far as like the secretions that it secretes. So yes, it's very close to that area.
So speaking about secretions, and also Elisa, wherever you are, I don't have my phone, so I don't know how much time I have. But speaking about secretions, so there's, probably every other month an article about squirting, and is it a thing? What is it?
Do you think that we're obsessed with it?
I love it.
You like the word squirting?
You love squirting.
Show of hands.
You love that we talk
like
about
squirting.
I'm such an open book, and God forbid if my parents were here to hear me have this conversation. But once again, it's research is research, and I feel like if you're capable of doing it, it is the best. And I think that women should talk about it amongst each other. And I think that what I wonder though is that can all women do it? Can all women squirt?
And that's where I want to take the pressure off. Not all women can do it. And it's not like it's like a skill set that you're like, oh my gosh, I can squirt. No, it doesn't mean that you get like, don't bring it up at happy hour. Be like, oh my gosh, I can squirt. Can you? That probably wouldn't go over too well. But there should be no pressure on if you can squirt or not. But really, and so I really delved into this because we've talked about it.
Yeah.
We did it in the HelloFlo videos. Is what actually is the consistency of the fluid that comes out when you squirt? Does everyone know what it is? Do we need? Because I'll break it down.
Let's explain.
Well, say it in medical terms.
It's female. It's basically female ejaculation.
It's coming from the Skenes glands.
Right, and so what they have realized that the Skenes glands are very close to your urethra. So I want to do a quick survey. How many? I want you to put up either 2 or 3. How many holes do you have down there? 2 or 3? More hands.
Why don't you say who has 3?
All right, it looks like most people know.
So there are 3 holes. So the urethra is where your urine comes from. So the Skenes glands are pretty much very close
Right,
to
so
the
people
urethra.
think that if they're squirting, they think that they're peeing.
Yes. So what they did realize is they did research on this. It was a very awkward research where they actually had women empty their bladder and then they had them stimulated either through masturbation or sex with their partner or foreplay. And right before they were going to orgasm, the researchers came in with their ultrasound probes.
That must have been very sexy.
I mean, someone's got to do it. Someone took one for the team. And what they realized is even though they had just measured their bladder content, it was now full again of urine. And then they measured then they made them continue, awkward. And they made them put these secretions. This is what we do in medicine, okay? We research. They put the secretions in a bag. This is so awesome. I love this research. And they actually analyzed it. And what they found was small secretions from Skenes glands, but a lot of it was composed of urine. When we think about male-female anatomy, during orgasms, male cannot urinate because the valve closes it off, so you cannot urinate, but they can ejaculate. So that's how that works. But with women, because we have 3 holes, you can, obviously, during orgasm, you can have urine come out as well as secretions. So there is a big mix of urine in there, but it's also secretions as well. So yes, but please don't be pressured if you don't squirt. You are fine.
Again, drink. Okay, So we have 10 minutes left, so I'm gonna try to hit on 2 more topics, and then if there's time and interest from the room, I know it's kind of an intimidating room to ask a question about sex, but we may open it up.
I think you should talk about vibrators.
That was where we were going next, vibrators.
So this is what's
So can we
the
start
use
by,
of vibrators, how we use them, how do women perceive them, how do men perceive them?
I think, Sarah, we need to start by telling every woman in this room that she should own a vibrator, if she doesn't already.
Who do
Important.
we need to buy one for? Let's see. Nobody.
I think
everyone has
the
one.
mirror and the vibrator. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I mean, I'm in total agreement. Well, it's very interesting because I was thinking a lot more about the women who I see and the men who I see. And right now, what I've noticed is with the sea change, with how women have learned not only to be accomplished in how they perform as girlfriends or as spouses, they also have been given the freedom to go out into the working world. And somehow, I think that women are really capable of doing so much in a 24-hour day. Then you take their male partner. The male partner comes in, and while they're so impressed by what his spouse or girlfriend can do, there's also a sense of feeling inadequate because they haven't necessarily been groomed the way we've been groomed as women, as girls, to perform as much as we could in the household. What they have been groomed is to be the provider. Obviously, there has been a shift, and now men say, okay, I'm here where I'm supposed to perform as well as my partner or as my girlfriend in the working world, and now I'm also supposed to be as capable in the household. What am I going to do to prove that I not necessarily have a little bit of power, but how is she going to look at me as a man still? And that's where the sex can be affected, greatly affected. And a woman, what I've heard a lot is the woman will come in and say, the old school thought is, well, I need to please my man, so he's not necessarily knowing how to please me, so I'm going to help him get the vibrator. And a lot of times men feel so threatened and feel so emasculated by that it becomes a big issue. That being said, I think that it's really about how do we generate a conversation so that the majority of the individuals shouldn't just be women, should also be men, so that you can have a conversation amongst each other. Now, I don't know what it is like amongst lesbians if they have this kind of dialogue, but I certainly know with the couples that I treat, heterosexual couples, that this is something that really does need to be discussed. It goes along with discussing money. I feel like money and sex are 2 very sensitive subjects that need to be addressed. And that men, if they really want to please their partners, they should go out and find the vibrators for their partners. And they can use it with themselves and see that it's not necessarily proving that they're not capable or they're not masculine enough. It's just another device to bring further stimulation.
So Jessica, if you had a really powerful vibrator and you were addicted to it, do you think you could break your clitoris and never have an orgasm without one?
Well, I sure hope not, because I don't think I can fix it. I wouldn't know what to do with that surgically. That might be hard. But no, it does, I mean, the clitoris is actually when it's erectile, is very firm, and it can stand to a lot of resistance. The one issue that I would say with vibrators is that it does have a different mechanism as far as achieving orgasm than manual stimulation.
Right.
So some people think about addiction with vibrators, but it's not so much about being addicted to vibrators, it's more so you need to figure out your comfort level with manual stimulation, whether it's self-masturbation without the vibrator, and also with your significant other and the vibrator. So I really think there needs to be 3. It's about balance. In the end, it's always about balance, because if you are always using a vibrator, it sometimes may be hard for you to now go in a relationship and expect your partner to do the same thing, because they're 2 completely different things as far as achieving orgasm. And so you really need to find that balance and make sure that you're giving yourself the experience to be stimulated by all different mechanisms so that you're not singling out one or the other. But no, I sure hope if any of you break your clitoris, please come see me. I would love to hear about it and figure out how to fix it. But I haven't had a patient yet with a broken clitoris.
Great. Okay, so we can all rest assured. So we have 5 minutes left. I'm going to shift gears a little bit to talk about a topic that I know I'm not the only person who has become recently obsessed with, but pubic hair. So there have been so many articles recently about what women are doing, what they used to do, what's going on right now, and what the gynecologists think of all this shenanigans. So I am 43 years old, and I can tell you that when I was in college, my friends and I all had pubic hair. I have read a lot of magazine articles recently that lead me to believe that's no longer what's going on when you're in college. So as someone who has seen more vaginas than most people, what's going on?
I might say I may have seen a few more than you, yeah, maybe hundreds. So yeah, and it's funny because as gynecologists, people really think that we're like focused on if she's shaved or not. I mean, we see so many after some point we're just like, it's a vagina. But what I will say is, yes, there has been a shift as far as whether we trim, wax, and either do like laser surgery as well, to shifting the pendulum to more wax and laser surgery, but we're actually going more back towards having hair. I will say that the body is very smart, so if things were there before, then it probably is a reason that it was there. Hence, with hair, it really does help to protect the vagina and the urethra as well, remember 3 holes, from infection, bacteria going up in those areas and causing any type of like urinary tract infections, yeast infections, bacterial vaginosis. And so there is a reason that it's there. It does not mean that there's anything against waxing or taking hair off. It just really means that you need to be safe when you do these things. Because for waxing, especially making sure that if you DIY, do it yourself, that's fine, but making sure that you make sure that the area is clean before you do it so you don't increase the risk of infection, because there are micro tears on the skin when you groom excessively, especially with waxing, and can increase your risk for STDs. And so I'm being careful after you groom in that way to maybe take a few days off from sexual intercourse. But yeah, I try not to notice too much what people are doing, but I know that there is a shift more towards hair growth again. So who knows, maybe in 20 years we're all going to be, you know, bald eagles again.
Back to the 70s.
Who knows? But I'm for it either way. Just know whichever way you're going to do it to be safe.
Yeah.
Do you have any opinions on this, Sarah?
I don't talk about waxing or any of that in my practice, so it doesn't really come up at all. And my feeling is that we're already in such a judgmental society. Why have any type of judgment? If you want to have it all off, have it all off. If you want to have the 70s bush, have the 70s bush. It doesn't matter. You know, it's just more important about whatever makes you feel most uncomfortable.
Yep. Absolutely.
Great.
I totally agree.
So we are down now. By the way, there is a timekeeper. I just didn't know that massive screen in front of me had the time. I think we probably have time for one question, if there was a question.
Let's do 2.
2 questions. Any questions? If anyone's interested.
Someone's running.
Oh,
someone's
yay!
running. Run.
But
Yay!
Hey there. Oh, good. This is on. Kim Ayers. That's K-I-M-A-I-R-S. I'm wearing a shirt that says, "I taught your boyfriend that thing you like."
Awesome.
Yeah, I've been in the sex toy industry 23 years, starting my own sex toy store in Boston called Grand Opening.
oh, that's genius.
Oh, that's hilarious. I love it.
So it's grandopening.com, and if you put blog her, you can get a discount. So
On
that's a good thing.
vibrators, right?
Vibrators, and there's like 20,000 items up down there. It's pretty cool, and it's confidential. I won't even know who's placing an order. But anyway, I am so thrilled that we've had this conversation.
Thank you.
It's just amazing. I was so excited to see that it was going to be on, and that the attendance is so great. And it's pretty amazing because we all want to learn about sex. And this has been wonderful, and I just want to, I do a lot of teaching and training. I'm part of 2 medical organizations, so we can go like hard science stuff, because that's a big, exciting part of it, you know, things like that. And then also to have a therapist up there, because I think that's a really important part of the dialogue.
Yeah.
And masturbation is a great way to start having orgasms. So I just want to say thank you so much
Thank you.
for having us today.
Thank you.
Have a great father, too.
Can I just add something to that? What you were just saying about masturbation. This is what's really interesting. This is how important it is to talk about masturbation. I was on The View a few years ago when my book came out, and Barbara said, I hear that you talk about masturbation in your book. And I said, I do. And all of a sudden, someone could see on the ratings of The View, it skyrocketed because we talked about masturbation for the rest of the segment. So there is something to be said about it.
It's good for ratings.
What was that?
Good for
I said
ratings.
it's good for ratings.
That's
Do you have a
true.
question?
I do. That's a great segue to my question because it's about masturbation. And it's two parts. One, can you masturbate too many times in a day? It happens. And then two, if you are using toys as a common, and I want you to bust this myth for me, please, that if you do utilize a toy to get off, right, is that in some way hindering your capability to have that sensitivity when you're with a partner? And the stimulation is more physical and more touch related.
So
And
no
less
judgment
battery operated.
if you're masturbating 18 times versus 1 time a day. Again, I think when we were talking about balance, it's making sure that you have balance as far as using actual vibrators, so physical stimulation or mechanical stimulation versus manual. And being sure that you have a balance between that, because there is a significant difference even with the connection to the brain and how the brain perceives what you're doing. With how you achieve that orgasm and how your body responds to that. And so it's not that it's addictive, it's just that you have to make sure that there is some balance between manual and mechanical. And so that's really it.
Okay, and how about the other question that I had? So
Which
this-
was
Too much?
Too much?
Can you hinder your
OD.
sensitivity?
You
when
hinder
you're
your
using a toy too
sensitivity
much?
with the way you achieve orgasm. If you
okay.
do too much of one than the other.
Right, but my skin looks so great after.
I love it. All right.
I had a quick question for us menopausal women.
Yes,
And
I love
that's,
menopause.
What would you recommend in terms of, our vaginas get thinner, we don't, we're not as moist.
Yes.
Do you think estrogen cream is the answer, or
Wait,
what
but
would you
can
recommend?
Yes, go right
okay,
ahead.
so first of all, please come tomorrow. We're having another talk that's hosted by Vagisil, and we are going to go
The full
very
spectrum.
deep on hormones and, no pun intended, hormones and vaginal dehydration. So please come tomorrow. I think it's at 6 p.m.
6 p.m.
But we'll also let
Yes, I'll just do a quick
Jessica
30-second
answer.
answer for that. Menopause is such an important part of our lives. I think people socially think that all of a sudden you're put in this crate and no one can get to you and you're sequestered for a very long time. But it really is us realizing the changes in our body and accepting those and not accepting it negatively but positively. So estrogen comes from your ovaries, remember?
Right.
Ovaries. And so when you have a significant decrease in estrogen, it affects the body, it affects the heart, it affects the arteries, the joints, bones, and things like the genital tract, such as the vagina. So you're going to have a decrease in estrogen going towards the vagina, which helps secrete it and make it healthy and happy. And so what I advocate for patients who have dry vagina is to, one, invest in lubricant. There's so
always.
many different lubricants, and I want you to go to the pharmacy and do this on the shelf. Okay, there are so many different types, silicone, water-based, and you'll go over that tomorrow. But also I'm a big advocate for hormone replacement therapy in the correct patient. So you have to talk to your doctor, because if you have risk factors that would preclude you from having that, then that's fine as well. But there also are medications, if you desire to take that route, that are not hormone-based that you can take for drier vaginas. So definitely have a good conversation with your GYN. And if you can't elicit that type of conversation with your gynecologist, go find another one. You are not obligated to stay with who you see if there's no connection. Because I want you to go in there and sit with your gynecologist and be like, hey, so can I masturbate? And it should not be it should be, yes, you can. And so make sure you have a good conversation about that. So many options, but definitely talk to your gynecologist.
Thank you.
How do you feel about
So,
coconut oil as a lubricant?
thank you so
Coconut oil as a lubricant.
Yes,
Thank-
coconut oil as well.
Thank you so much, Sarah and Jessica, and thank you all. People who work with me have been hearing me say wine and gyne on a daily basis, because I really believe that women need to learn more about their bodies in order to live healthier lives, and this has been very much a pet project for me. So thank you all so much for your attention and for joining us. Cheers.